Yeah, so you can use the Burke Center. They are very helpful with Moreno Valley resident. Um, I will give you information about our CTE person. Nikki Cook she does workshops periodically and also career-based, like they have a career day and also stuff like that. So you can use that kind of resource. If you do the apprenticeship program, they will have you do the training. You have to pass the training in order to work or interview even that. Okay. All right. So that will be helpful. So I will also post it in the class so that way you can have access to it in case you miss it. Okay, what we're gonna do next is we are gonna do laptops, which you have laptops near you now, right? When we're done, please put the tool back into its case. You can also leave it in the area and I'll pick it up and put it away. We will use tools in various parts. So I'll do this with you together. And then there are section in the lab where you would have to open up the laptop, okay? Okay, so as you look at your assignment, this is the second thing that we have to do today. You can download this file and save it to your USB. And as you do, you also need to save your USB save your document. Let me make sure I'm on share. Okay, so we're gonna do lab 1. It's only gonna take a short time. So let's do it together. And some of this stuff is legacy. That means it's old and it's no longer there, right? So for the first one, number 1, which is this slot right here. Oh, you don't have access to the file? On the USB? Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can print it for you. Give me a second. Sorry, everybody. I just want to make sure she has some things to work with. All right, I have a printer. I hardly ever use printer these days. Also, if you guys have wireless printer at home, turn it off when you're not using it, right? If you want to know why, take ethical hacking. And then you will learn why.
But I thought it's really long and much longer.
I'm sorry?
Why do you leave it on?
Because it uses weak security. Someone can scan and be able to access your. They have used all my paper in here the other class and they don't refill it. I'm just gonna have to print it opposite page to whatever. Trying to print. Yeah, so they can scan your network, right? And be able to see. And because your printer has very weak security to connect, typically it can be accessed with one scan. And then even if you have a pin to be able to connect to it, they might be able to guess you. Okay. All right, it worked. Yeah, you can use the old school way. Okay, so we're gonna look at your laptop parts, and A+ might ask you about this, so let's go through it together, starting from number 1. Okay, so on the left here, this is called memory stick reader. This was used back in the day before, long before your micro SD. So if you see a laptop that has this, it reads your memory stick that you slide into the slot. Okay? So it's kind of like the old SD, but it is not. It looks similar to the SD, or similar in size, I should say. But this is how people used to be able to have more memory or storage on their system, because back in the day, very little storage that you have. And then number two, as you can see, a little font, the little label next to it, this is called SD. And SD, if you're curious, it stands for Secure Digital. So on these cards, similar to your floppy or any other things, you can also have, some of them have a little glider that you can lock it. So that way, if someone take your card and stick it into their computer, not that they can't slide it back, right? To be able to read. But cryptography been around for a long time, and people can also use cryptography for it. But security was not a big concern back in the day, even though there was attacks and things that happened, but not as a big thing like it is today. So SD was commonly used on like video camcorder, digital camera, which is coming back. I'm happy to see that it's coming back because everybody used their smartphone. And then when we transition to smart devices, the SD card becomes smaller once you have the micro SD, which is very tiny compared to the SD, right? So when you buy adapter, right, it uses the SD actual case, and then you put your micro SD in it. I don't know if you've seen those. I use Raspberry Pi a lot, and I have to image my Raspberry Pi with micro SD through my laptop. So I have to use the SD slots or the adapter for it, because some of my laptops don't have micro SD connection. Okay, now let's go old school, right? If you're looking at your laptop on the side or in the back, sometimes you would see this one. This is how you connect to your TV or your monitor, right? That's called your VGA. This stands for video graphic array. Sometimes they are colored in blue but typically black. And most of the time they would have two little screws on the side, because back in the day when they make this cable, right, it can fall off. So what they did was they secure it with the two screws. So that's called video graphic array. And that's to connect to your monitor or your projector. It's weird because even today, right, when I go to Ben Clark or when I'm presenting at different events for Moreno Valley College, when I show up, they still have VGA cable. And I was like, my laptop doesn't have VGA. And they're like, oh, we have an adapter. I was like, oh, I have an HDMI only. But you can also wirelessly connect your system now to be able to stream from it, right? So on the HDMI, which is what you see on most television systems today, it stands for High Definition Multimedia Interface. We love acronyms in IT, right? And this is the regular, normal HDMI compared to the micro HDMI, which is smaller. That's what you see on the Raspberry Pi. So HDMI gives you sound and image in high definition. That's the benefit, right? You can use it for the same thing for multimedia display or projection. So I can connect it to the monitor or to the projector. All right, 5. We know that whenever you see a USB connection or a port, so a port to the system is like a window or door, right? So I can open the door for a component to connect to me or to come in, right? So port can be logical or physical. So these are ports. So whenever you see a USB port that is blue, that's coded for USB 3, we say USB 3, but it's 3X, right? 3.1 or 3.2. So when it's blue in color, compared to the black one next to it, that's a 2.0. And USB usually have a chicken foot symbol, right? I call it the chicken foot symbol. So you can always remember that it is USB. So remember when it's blue, it's USB 3. When it's black, it's USB 2. Can it be USB 1? Sure, if it's super old, right? So I'm gonna tell you when USB flash drive, they call it jump drive back in the day, first came out, I bought one for 128 megabyte and it was $250, okay? And it was USB 1.0. It was so slow. But I was bragging to all my friends, hey, I have a USB flash drive. But now you can get it for a few dollars, even that. Okay, so USB 3.0 and 2.0 is used to connect external devices that are USB with the chicken foot logo. Number 7, you're gonna see your Ethernet. It looks like a phone connection, but your connector is called RJ45. It's used for Ethernet cable. Most of you are familiar with the Ethernet cable at home. That is used for network connection. So let me scroll down. So Ethernet port is used to connect to your local area network, right, through your Ethernet cable. And your current Ethernet cable is, so I have students who are like, I'm gaming and I'm connecting to my wireless router. Should I connect it to the cable or should I connect it to the Wi-Fi? I said, if you can connect it to the cable, it's much faster, right? You're going to get a faster speed compared even on your own 5G. And also Wi-Fi signal is inconsistent sometimes. So if you have walls that have metal plates or things that can impede, and that's for the next class. But Ethernet cable allows you to connect to your LAN or your local area network. And then next to it, you would see a little round connection, sometimes bigger or smaller. And this is called your battery charger, right? This is a DC connector. So it converts your currents, your DC currents into AC, which is what your computer uses. And that's for your system power, mostly battery charging. Now we do some wireless charging too, right? With mobile devices, if you have the magnetic base. And those tend to be okay. Any question? So now we kind of know ports, right? So when we say ports, there are doors or windows to your system to connect devices or to receive data. Yeah. Yes, question? Yeah.
So, uh, internet. How effective are Wi-Fi extenders?
60%. Basically, extender, it takes a signal and repeats it. So you have to get a good quality ones. A lot of them comes built in with higher price router or access point. If you buy the normal repeater or extender, half of the time they're not working as they should. The only problem is usually people use extender is to take signal from far away and then retransmit it. So your repeater, your extender needs to be close in proximity, so that kind of defeats the purpose. I bought and used quite a few of them. So if you can find one that has good ratings, that's consistent, tend to be higher than $30-$40. But typically they come with like routers that have that. And some of them they're calling amplifier. So it just take the signal and amplify it, right? So it makes it just more clear as it resends it.
And what about with the ones that connections built in?
Yeah, some of those are okay, but you still have to connect it into your wireless router at home. So basically, it takes your router signal, right? Copy it and then duplicate it. But also depending where your receiver is. So let's say that if you're on your router is on second floor and you're on the first floor and you're far away, you kind of have to see like in between if there's anything that's impeding. Glass bounces signal, water bounces signal, and metal bounces signal. This is why people install fountains in hospitals like that to prevent signal from escaping or other signals. Right? Yeah. The next class is really also geared for that, but that's a good question to kind of think about. And Ethernet is always way better, right? Right now in rating. All right, next. You are gonna look at your media card slots again for A on the left. So this is media storage, which is also different than SD. This is why like the industry now, they're like, okay, let's just use one type of USB, one type of SD. You know, everybody produces the same thing. So that way, like not having to buy 5 different things for the same purpose. And then also express card slots. So the express card is faster in speed and it's used for different purposes, but you can you would see something like this. Okay. It's crazy that, you know, so now the A plus have more questions. You have 1,000 something questions. I remember A plus exam used to be like 800 questions or even less than that, right? So the more technology you add on, so they just stack it onto the old legacy stuff. So sometimes you get old questions, sometimes you get new questions. It's randomly generated, so. And then you see the smaller HDMI. This is micro HDMI, which is when you look at it, it's less in length. Right? It's smaller. So you would see that as micro HDMI. This is not very popular in the regular laptop, but you see it in like Raspberry Pi or some embedded systems. It's only because, you know, it's cheaply integrated into the board compared to your, I don't know if it's that much cheaper, but yeah, you're gonna see a lot of the embedded smaller system. Also space, right? Because the regular HDMI will take up more space, so they would put the micro. And then this one is older, so you are going to have the D here is you see it? It's black, right? Rectangular. The picture doesn't depict it very good, but it's also a USB 2.0. And then one of my old favorites is your FireWire, right? FireWire used to be very popular in the old Apple systems or Sony systems or Philips systems, right? Sony eventually acquired Philips. And the way that it's rated, this is FireWire B, and the number for that is 1394. So when you're studying for A class, you remember all these standards, okay? 1394, this was used for Apple, iLink, or so, which is so by Sony. So if you have like an old Sony video camcorder, you can connect via FireWire. If you have, let's say, old Sony, I don't know, home theater system. I think some Philips technology also have that too, but more commonly with these products. And then we'll do attendance. Also, Texas Instrument came out with what's called a link systems, and they also use FireWire. The good thing about FireWire that people still prefer to use is the transfer rate is excessively faster. And when I say excessively faster than USB, it really is, right? That's why it's really good for like high definition sound and images. And then lastly, This is a little lock that you slide. So in case your laptop physically falls into the wrong hand, not that they can't unslide it. Security lock slot. But now they have like logical lock with your processor. So and you can also have a remote lock service. I implemented that with one of my clients where if somebody lose their laptop, right, we can wipe and lock it just like how you have with iCloud when you report it lost, and hopefully they don't have access to that before the report. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quick, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the 3 on your own, and while you do that, I'll take attendance. So there's an Acer Aspire laptop, and this is the size, right? 15.6 is your standard. You have an i5, which is, so people say, oh, should I go with the i9, i5? Well, depending on the generation. So this is an older generation. How can you tell a generation is the number that Intel uses? So when you see it's an 8, that's an 8th generation. If it's 1, that's 11. 1, 3, that's 13th generation, right? And the spec of, and so not all i7 are equal, okay? Because people are like, oh, this laptop's really great. It's an i9. I said, look at the spec in the bench, right? Yeah, because i9 can be very slow or i9 can be very fast, right, depending on the model. So this is an i5. And you want i5 or better because it's able to do virtualization after i5. If you go with something older, you are not using the latest modern technology. And so, but it's clocking at 1.6, which is very slow, right? And even if it has multiple cores, so your cores are like little children that shares the task. So if you tell them to go wash the dishes, so if you have 4 core, all of it is 4 kids that are doing the dishes simultaneously. Whereas if you have dual cores, 2 kids that are doing the dishes simultaneously. Okay, so there's 8 gig, right? And then 512 GB solid state. It has some video adapter built into the board, right? This is the resolution, which is standard, and it runs Windows 10. Now we're at Windows 11. So the upgrade, make sure that you have the same socket type, like wheels and tires, right? We want to make sure the tire fits on the wheel. So you can go with an i7, maybe faster, but make sure it's the same socket type. We'll talk about socket type in the next round. You should go with a higher gigahertz, which is mean frequency. So the higher the gigahertz, the better. If it's 1.6, now I think most bench system, if you upgrade, typically you can't upgrade the old system like this directly to the new processor. You might have to go like a few processor older. So you can go like 3.4. That's double the speed. That's good enough, right? But if you want to go super fast, you'll probably have to scrap a lot of the hardware components. But make sure we have the same connection. We can add more RAM or upgrade the stick so we can go from 8 gig and we can double it. Okay. Nowadays, if you're gonna buy laptop for work or school, I recommend 16 gig is the base. Okay. For cybersecurity, the more RAM, the better because you virtualize a lot of things. And then we can upgrade, we can double the size of our storage, which gives us more file space. This gives us more application capability. This gives us more file storage. Bigger the stomach, right? Bigger the brain. All right. Any questions? So that's like an easy upgrade. So if you go to Geek Squad, you're like, top, how much do you charge to upgrade? They're gonna tell you this. It's gonna cost you $400. This is gonna be now RAM, probably like 250, right? And then the storage also higher, like maybe 150, 200. So combined, that's probably $600-700. You're like, I can buy another HP that's like equivalent for that much, right? So you need to make sure you compare. I have students that work at Geek Squad too. So, question?
So there's no way to upgrade the 1920 by 1080.
Oh, this? This is really depending on this. So if you want to game, buy a separate or upgrade your video adapter, the card for your video conversion. Yeah, so you can do it through your bus, like I said, like external components add-on, so which gives you better resolution, but your screen, this is what it resolved to. So with that, like you need to project it onto your TV.
That's when you have the HDMI,
Plug it in. Yeah, you can plug it into your TV that's 4K or 8K, right? And then you can still play with your laptop the same way. Yeah, you can plug it in through HDMI cable.
Make sure that it's also compatible for like the GPU as well too.
Right.
Before you plug it in there, because if you plug in anything that's incompatible to your TV, here's what's gonna be the verdict in there. Your stuff is gonna stutter your frame rate and your core processing unit, depending on what part you buy from in there. Like let's say Micro Center or anything, for instance, you might gonna have to deal with a lot of verdict issues in there.
Yeah. So you have to kind of configure it also, right? You wanted to do projection, also resolve, but like I said, like fast car, small lanes, right? You have to really think about the limitation of your devices, like your projection and your adapter. Like what he said, right? If your processor is not synchronizing at the same speed, you typically will have issues. Um, so, like I would research, and the best thing also ask AI, like, this is what I want, this is what I want. How do I approach this? And it's going to give you some information, but you can go into your display, also like device manager in Windows, right? You guys know that? So in Windows, like you have a device manager that lists all the hardware. You can't configure on these because we're not administrator, but you would see, right? So you would see all your systems that are connected, including USB, your ports, right? Your monitor. Okay. This is what Windows sees. Okay. Yeah. And then if you can uninstall, configure, etc. That's a different session. All right, number 3. Let's do that in the next 40 minutes or so, and then I will take attendance. So take the laptop that I give you. What you will do is use the screwdriver. You don't have to use anti-side wrist strap, all of that. Make sure we remove the battery. So slide it, and then slide the glider to block the battery, and then take the battery out first, right? And then for your RAM, there's a main, it looks like I don't know, look like an S, kind of a T. Just make sure that when you unscrew, don't lose the screw, please, because I left some laptop there that the other class, the students did, and they lost the screw, so nothing comes back the same. So, and then you can also open up other compartments to check it out. Your goal is to look at the spec of the drive, the RAM, and other things if you can list it. So, so I want you to have some kind of exposure. If you want to open up the back panel, but make sure you detach the battery and then unscrews and then list. So take out the card and read it. But the way that you remove the RAM, when you push it, it's gonna slant up and then you can guide it out. As you insert it, it's the same way, but you can take a picture of it if you're not sure, so that way you can put it back the same way that what we talked about, right? On the RAM. So what we're gonna do, right, is unscrew this T part or R part, whatever it looks like. Okay, your RAM is this little stick on the right side right here. Okay, if you can't, so there's a little lever, like a push lever. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pull it to the right, okay? And it's gonna pop up as a slanted level like this, right? So there's 2 levers, it's like 2 little metal hinges on the side. You're gonna take your finger and then you just glide it, pull it to the right and left. And it's gonna pop up. It's gonna eject it. You're gonna take your hand and you're gonna slide it out, okay? But make sure it pops up as an angle, And on the back, you're gonna see a sticker. And it's gonna tell you the type of RAM it is. Okay? When you insert it back, there's a short pin and a long pin set. You're just gonna glide it back in, right? And then pull the lever back so it sits back down. So basically when you pull the two little lever, it's gonna pop the RAM up, and then you can just slide it out, look at the sticker, and it'll tell you the RAM. So if we replace a RAM, look at the sticker, buy another RAM, we'll put it in. But they're 2 slots, so you might have 2 cards. Okay? And then next, under this one is missing the drive, but you might see a drive that's sitting there. So find some of the components and list it for me. I just want you to have some hands-on experience because what's a hardware class about having hardware? Okay. So list the drive, like the size of the drive, the capacity, the RAM, what kind of RAM it is. If it says PC2, that's a DDR2. Okay. And then it might say the speed or the size. So, and don't worry about breaking it because these are non-operable already. But if you have problems, call me. So when you put it back, just insert it. It's at the angle, right? Sit it down and then glide the little side arm hinges together. I'm gonna put it back on the top.
Like this guy is having a hard time. I don't know what I mean.
So all day long, when you fix things in IT, you're always gonna have to, and then when you put them back, right, when you push it down, it's gonna pop the 2 arms to hold the ring back together. Okay. And if you want to use anti-static strap and stuff. Okay, let me stop my video. So it's not like long and with no talking. And then let me take